where it is that we go from here. As you all know, that the voters did not support the proposition relating to the expansion of the ice arena to include, of course, the second sheet of ice. And that leaves us in the quandary of where do we go from here. The proposal that's in front of you tonight is really twofold. Number one, the question that you need to address would be that of retaining the $3.2 million that council set aside. I want to say could be as long as 2 years ago now, for the purposes of aiding the sort of supporting the fundraising efforts on the private side, if you will, the user group side, and whether or not that should be retained for this purpose. And then secondly, what level of time frame would council be willing to support pursuant to the time needed not only to raise the remaining funds, but also with regard to the user groups taking on the services of a CMAR to help right-size the expansion with regard to the funds that the user groups can raise to complete the project. And so that's where your twofold question is tonight. Pursuant to that, I would suggest that even though the groups are not asking for this, I would suggest that adding more money to what it is that council has already set aside previous to the vote question coming in front of the voters, the ballot question coming in front of the voters, would not be something I would recommend. And again, the user groups aren't really even asking for that, but just to clarify, I think that would be counter to what it is the voters suggested about the where this project goes from here. So with that in mind, you certainly have a number of people here tonight that look like they're very interested in this conversation, I assume. And because I don't think they're here for the old landfill remedy project or any of those things. I could be surprised, but I doubt it. And so if indeed council wanted to entertain a presentation from the group along those lines, that would be up to you as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's where we're at with this item tonight.
If someone is prepared to give a presentation, I would certainly want to hear it.
Councilors, good evening. So I wouldn't say that we're necessarily prepared to give a presentation. Actually, the city manager stole my thunder and really summarized where we're at pretty well. Clearly, you saw the memo, so I won't necessarily spend any more time on the history, but we did want to make ourselves available to answer any questions or address any concerns that council has. And so I'll just introduce just a few people. So this is Travis St. John. He has come before you several times as one of the primary leaders in the fundraising group. Nick Whips, of course, our recreation manager over the ice arena operation, and Brendan Bummer is also part of the leadership team that's taking on the fundraising effort. So we are just here to try to address any questions that you have about the proposed process that hopefully you will for us.
I guess I'll start off. It's basically our memo said what the CMAR would cost, and that it appeared that the hockey club would still go ahead and fund that. What type of a time frame are you looking at to continue fundraising?
So based on the feedback, because the CMAR contract has went out for RFP through the city, and based on at least the feedback we've got from Zalima and Scott Baxter too, I believe that we have usually those will take 3 to 6 months to kind of get that feedback. So one of the and I think the way we maybe hoped to term it was to give some allowance for that process, because hopefully that doesn't take 6 months, but if it does, then Certainly, we may need a few months after that. So I don't know how to arrange that in date, I guess, per se, that given we're kind of waiting for however long that may take. So we didn't just, we set it more as a completion of the CMAR and then some time period after that to revisit with donors.
Okay. So you don't really have a time frame then, once the CMAR is done, that it would take another 6 months to raise the funds, or a year, or?
I think with where we're at within fundraising right now and the communications that we've already had with the donors is that I'd say if we had 3 to 4 months at the close of that time frame with the CMAR, then I mean that should be acceptable for enough time.
So we're looking at the end of 25 then? Is pretty
Yeah,
much
so,
what you're looking
hopefully, but you could certainly get there. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm trying to give the new council a little bit of time as well, because they'll be coming in January and they could change.
And we're certainly motivated to get it done as quick as we possibly can, regardless of that deadline. And it would be nice to, maybe put that at the end of 25, then we're not having to, whatever comes up within the contract with the CMAR, then we're not having to come back and spend your guys' time again, y'all's time again.
And that's what I was trying to
For
do
sure.
as well, was give you enough time to be able to. As long as council was okay with it, they're the ones that have got to decide as well. That's
For sure.
That's why I was asking that. So are we interested in keeping the 3.2 to hold that over? Because as the city manager said, that was already set aside. And we got into the debate whether it was in 21 or 22, which was well before the citizens said no. So that's kind of where that is. It's sitting there. We don't have any eyes on it right now for anything. So are we willing to hold that over?
Yeah, I think we should. I think their fundraising, their design, their CMAR, I mean, they're clearly, the momentum they have is based on the commitment that we made, and it sounds like it, they got a pretty ambitious timeline to get the rest of it raised, and I'm sure a lot of folks in this room were disappointed with the outcome of the special election, but I was really impressed with how everyone rallied and saw yard signs everywhere, and I know a lot of the user groups were, petitioning their family and friends to support it and stuff, so I've seen nothing but enthusiasm and advocacy and work on the part of them, so I think we absolutely need to retain that.
And go to the end of 25 for right now?
Just to clarify, Mayor, is the end of 25, that's the extended deadline for fundraising?
For right now, yes.
Yeah.
That gives them basically a year to get their to get the other guy in place, and then it gives them roughly 6 months to see how their fundraising is going, to see if they need a further extension or not, and let the council next year make that decision.
I think that this is our best idea since I've been on council to try to encourage private user groups to actually participate and help. So I'm 100% on board with giving them the time they need. And if all they want is a year, I'll be here next year too.
Very good. So we're all in agreement then? Keep the 3.2 and go to the end of 25?
Tourism, I think, dollars and economic. I said the tourism dollars that it would bring in having a second sheet of ice too.
Oh, yeah.
Would be huge.
Well, and Salim has already showed that basically the second sheet of ice will actually reduce our subsidy as well. So there is a bit of a vested interest from the city standpoint as well.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree, and I just want to say thanks to all of you for coming. I know city council meetings are thrilling, so you're welcome to stick around, but it's been really nice to see you all come together and show up. It's not a community that I've been part of, but now I kind of want to be somehow. So, but I really just wish you the best of luck in raising the funds and hope we can pull it off together. I think it'll be great for you and Casper.
That's where we'll go, if that's okay with you folks. Very
Thank you very
good.
much.
We appreciate all of you coming. Thank you for that.
We're gonna give them a minute.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
discussion.
These are
EBI
the we find out, right? We just need to funnel it right over there.
Just run a pipe. Billings does that.
Really?
Billings captures their methane gas off their landfill.
And where do they
I tried to
deploy it?
I was just having this.
Project, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. We need to come to you with regard to this project. Not because it hasn't been budgeted or anything like that, but rather because the scope of this particular project has grown, at least in terms of what we think the cost will be. With this, however, comes also the negotiated partnership with the state that is quite favorable for the city of Casper and this particular project. As you will have the opportunity to dig into in terms of any questions you may have, the upshot of this negotiation and where we're at today as it relates to this project is that the state is going to have a very healthy relationship to the development of the gas trenches that this remedy requires out at the old landfill, as well as with regard to the fencing and so on. In fact, they're willing to cover that to the extent of 100%. As it relates to the storm sewer line that goes under the old landfill, however, their relationship will be on a 70-30 basis with the city of Casper. And so, while not as vigorous on the other side of the project, still a very healthy funding relationship, which means that pursuant to what we think the quote will be in the $700,000 area, the city may only be exposed to roughly $120,000, which is a pretty good leverage opportunity as it relates to state money coming to this particular needed remedy. So with that, we didn't want to put an RFP out into the public without you being aware of the expanded nature of this project, or I should say the expanded cost of this project, and give you the opportunity to ask any questions at all that may be brought to mind as a result of this direction. And so with that, if I could invite Tom and Cindy here. Oh, there she is. Okay, way in the back there. Tom and Cindy up to answer any questions you may have and pursuant to a hopeful support of this direction. That's why we're here this evening.
You get to talk trash again.
I love it.
So do you folks want to say anything to begin with, or has Carter set it up and you're waiting on questions?
Carter did an excellent job, Your Honor. And this is a really good relationship with the state. Really good relationship, because the stormwater line originally, they didn't want to pay for any of that because it's really not related to the contamination associated with the landfill. So we got 70% out of them, so that was a great deal. So we do want to go out to bid though on this, so we can get winter bids, because historically we get better lower bids. So we wanted to heads up that we'd like to bid right now. And then back in budget amendment number 2, and have the detailed low bid information in there.
Questions? Comments?
Just another question, just a comment, I think. I was just talking briefly with Councilor Sutherland about, Bill, I don't know if you're probably aware of this, Cindy, but Billings, Montana captures their landfill methane gas and actually uses it to heat homes. I mean, it's a bigger, bigger city, but I just wondered if that's something we had even thought about, and I don't know what the expense is in terms of harnessing that or that kind of thing, but I just want to mention that when I saw you did mention the methane as an issue with the landfill here too, so.
Your Honor, Council, good question, because it was probably 10 years ago, we brought a proposal to council to study capturing the gas and using it to heat an old building up there. And the rate of return was a long way out.
Yeah.
So they decided not to do that. And so the gas system that we currently have on our closed landfill actually flares.
I see.
So we capture the gas and we flare it. In this old landfill, it's like the prehistoric stuff before the regulations were in. And unfortunately, it's still generating landfill gas that's getting beyond our parameter, which is against environmental rules. So the trench was actually DEQ's idea to trench it there so it doesn't spread further than 25 acres where our historic people actually landfilled. So we have studied that, and there's not enough gas in this old landfill, just enough to bust, the environmental regulations. So it's very low levels, so it's not worth actually capturing or flaring. But we want to keep it off other people's property.
I would bet that's the case in Billings too. It's probably an old, ancient landfill.
And if it generates enough gas and it makes sense, the
Yeah,
rate of return comes back. A lot of times they do capture it and use it to heat buildings, but the council previous to you guys several years ago decided not to do that. So the one that generates the most gas, we flare. When we add the new landfill to it, which we'll be looking at someday in the future, and that is something we'll be coming back to y'all and be asking you, hey, we think this is a really good idea to capture the new landfill gas and sell it to the gas pipeline companies or something like that. So definitely a potential future project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Mayor. Looks like it was originally budgeted last fiscal year for a little over $500,000. Now the total cost is looking at $716,000. Is that just is the scope expanding? Is it just the fact that everything is going up, and is this just in line with all the other bids that we're getting back, or is there something about this one that, because I noticed that was a good 25%, 50% increase, seemed a little bit higher than the norm.
Your Honor, Counselor, you're right. We were still in negotiations during capital planning last year for budget time. And we had the fencing and regrading to limit the amount of stormwater going in, but we hadn't negotiated the trenches yet or the stormwater system. So that got done after budget time. So those were the things that actually creeped up the cost estimate from 500,000 to 700,000, where there's gas trenches and the stormwater line. Yeah.
Any other questions? Send it out for bid. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Truancy curfew and loitering ordinance review. Mr. City Manager.
Well, Mr. Mayor, before we jump into that item, may I be so bold to suggest that maybe we move item number 5 up ahead? we've got a couple employees we wanted to recognize.
Oh, okay.
As a part of this particular item,
Sure.
that while they all have a very high thirst for knowledge, I think they'd like to go home if that's possible to allow them that option.
Gentlemen are over there. Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, or if you want to stay, you can come up here and I'll go home. Okay. I just thought I would offer. Yes, that's fine. Go ahead with the solid waste sign design.
Thank you. I
bet.
appreciate that. And so if I could turn some time over to Tom to walk us through that, that'd be great.
Mayor, councilors, I realize a lot of times a lot of the people that I get the opportunity to work with do some amazing things, and I haven't been as good at recognizing what they did. I came to know about this project after I came here, and that was the sign that you'll see when you go into the council chambers tonight. That's behind there, that beautiful Casper WYO sign. And we didn't have any budget for that sign, and so Jolene and Christopher in public engagement, they worked up a really cool design. And then they worked with our amazing people at Solid Waste and said, hey, we don't have any money, but we want a really cool sign. And lo and behold, they delivered. So I'd like to introduce Sean Olozek and Tim Buckaloo. You guys please stand, be acknowledged.
So they're not going to stick around and be introduced to council meeting?
Well, we snuck them in where we could, and I appreciate
Okay.
you. Sorry, man. And it's nicer for them because they get to go home as well. So
Okay.
these guys basically, with less than $500 in materials, built that amazing sign that's in there. You know, there's a steel behind it and then a polished aluminum. And Tim spent countless hours polishing that aluminum and make it look just perfect, and then used reclaimed wood for the WYO. So it's an amazing example of them making a sign that, my guess is if I put it out on the free market right now, it costs us $15,000 to get that sign built. And it was built for less than $500 because of the plasma table they have. That plasma table is designed so they can repair and fix dumpsters and the baler facility and all kinds of the tough stuff that they have to work around in the solid waste facility. And they took that wonderful piece of equipment, programmed in the sign design, had it cut out of steel, then cut out of aluminum, and then finished it perfectly and oversaw the installation. So it's an amazing example of how we're not always wasting money. We're saving a lot of money, and the people that work for the city, especially those frontline people, do amazing work. And every time we present a challenge to them, people like Tim and Sean rise to the occasion and succeed. So I just wanted to acknowledge them for their great work, and I hope you can appreciate the sign even more when you walk into council chambers tonight.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate it. Now back to truancy.
Yes, sir, and thank
Okay.
you for that indulgence, Mr. Mayor.
Not a problem.
So this particular item, as it relates to these three topics pursuant to statutes and ordinances, was a request from you that basically entertains the question of what it is that we can do to be more consistent, not only here in the city of Casper with regard to these items, but as it relates to enforcement throughout the county with our partner communities pursuant to a discussion that leadership here had with your fellow leadership throughout the county. And so the hope is that eventually we can all have similar ordinances that allow for more uniform enforcement on some of these items that hopefully would work against some of the disturbing trends that we're seeing among our youth here in our county. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, and pursuant to any other comments that leadership might have with regard to setting up this item, the city attorney's office, in concert with the PD, have been looking at these ordinances and have some review for you this evening. Okay.
So Are we going to the? Looks like he threw you under the bus,
Oh,
Eric.
that's okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. So in your packet are copies of what ordinances we have currently regarding curfew and loitering. With regard to truancy, that is not something that is regulated or addressed by the municipalities. Wyoming statute 214101 et sec addresses compulsory attendance and outlines the procedure that the school districts can follow when there is failure to attend. In short, kids from the age of 7 to 16 have to attend school unless they have an exception, including attendance at a homeschool program. In the event that they fail to do any of those things, then notice can be given to the district attorney, and then that is really a neglect action that takes place in county court, and the district attorney handles. So I believe that the city is essentially preempted by state statute with regard to that. With regard to curfew and loitering, I didn't really prepare any real in-depth discussion of that. I think they're fairly self-explanatory. I did discuss briefly with the chief regarding the curfew ordinances, and we have identified a couple of areas that may need to be cleaned up to make it a little bit easier to enforce, and that is something that we're going to get together on with my deputy attorney who handles municipal court to come up with some proposed revisions. Of course, in the broader context, as city manager described, it sounds like there's some discussions among the various municipalities along the lines of standardizing them. We have not been involved in those, but if those progress, then we'll certainly be plugged in and may come back with other suggestions. But so that's really for information at this point only. Happy to entertain any questions you all might have.
Thank you. I don't think I have a question, but maybe just a comment. I'm not opposed to this by any stretch of it, to this being whatever this could be in terms of thinking about how to adapt or change these ordinances in relation to what we're seeing with youth. I do think it's really important, though, that we look at the data and understand how much of a problem we really have in terms of youth violating curfew. And I'll explain my hesitation, and that is that we're consistently now and historically, even back to when I was in high school, really at a loss when it comes to third spaces for our youth. And that's one of the biggest things that we hear from youth. Where do we go? That's not home and that's not school. And I do think that we might have opportunities actually with our parks in terms of there are spaces that have been created for youth in a generative way that I think that we might be able to explore. And I worry a little bit, or I think it's worth keeping in mind that if we take a legal route that penalizes an entire group because a few are misbehaving, that might have a negative unintended consequence, especially when it comes to having that space for our youth. So it's again, not in opposition, and there might be really good reason if we see that there are certain places or certain times that are really problematic, but it's just maybe some caution and maybe looking at, I just think that understanding what the city could do to help elevate that third space for our youth might be, on the flip side, a way to kind of gear them toward positive community engagement rather than, kids up to no good. So it's just, I think it's worth keeping that in mind.
Any other questions or comments? I know Mills and from our morning breakfasts with the other mayors and with the county, they're, well, and you've been there to a couple of them, they're also interested in trying to figure out what to do. And so this was kind of the first step as to what do we actually have on the books? And, you know, to a point, if you look at the hours for the curfews, you know, it's midnight on Friday and Saturday nights. And what good really comes after midnight on a Friday and Saturday night if you're a 15-year-old kid? There's not a lot. And it goes to 11 o'clock Monday through Thursday. So those two times to me are not a bad deal. So, yeah, so go ahead.
I'll go for it.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I guess to echo what Councilor Sutherland said, I think we should be hesitant to add on to this. I felt like this was fairly comprehensive, and as I was reading through it, you know, I thought of Lene Brown. She was killed, I think, midnight on a Sunday night. Had someone seen those kids congregating in a public park, they could have called that in. Our ordinance would have already allowed the police discretion to act in that case, and so I feel like this is a pretty good place to start. I'd be certainly open to standardizing across the municipalities. I think there's value in that, as we found with the Metro Animal Shelter Task Force. Just makes things more consistent from an enforcement and you know, kind of standpoint. But yeah, I felt like this was pretty good. I didn't see the potential to add on to it in any meaningful way that would, you know, surgically address some of these high-profile incidents that we've experienced this past year. But would be open to standardizing it potentially. And if the health department and their task force, you know, has recommendations, at least now it's out in the open. We've chatted about it. If anyone has recommendations or suggestions, I'd be open to hearing them, but I feel like this is a pretty good place to start. So.
Mayor, if I could just briefly respond. So I think those are great comments. When you look at the curfew ordinance, there are certainly exceptions for organized activities, et cetera, et cetera. So I think to the extent that, and I've heard this too, there's a lack of third spaces, you know, for our youth. If that is addressed, I think that the current ordinance does accommodate that. And so, so I would agree. I'm not sure that we're really looking to add anything on to what we currently have. I think what does create a little bit of a gray area in enforcement is that the curfew ordinance references loitering. And then so when you go to the loitering ordinance, there's the definition of loitering and acts constituting prohibited loitering. And so it makes it almost that you have to find that they're engaging in prohibited loitering in order to find a violation of curfew. And so potentially cleaning that language up, maybe disengaging the two so that you don't have to prove loitering in order to prove curfew. In the case of the young lady, I mean, that could give our officers a little more leeway to investigate, maybe get those folks to disperse, right? So I think that's what we're looking at from an internal standpoint. Certainly not, I would agree. I mean, I think that the framework as currently constituted, I think looks pretty good by and large. That being said, if we get together with our neighboring communities and there's some other approaches being taken, if we can, you know, synergize them, I think that as well.
Very good.
Sorry, once more, I forgot. You brought up third spaces. I meant to address that. I totally agree with the importance of third spaces. That's why I'm really excited about our plan to revise Marion Kreiner Park to have a metal skate park, and I'm really excited about the work that Casper BMX is doing to create a pump track over there. So I'm hoping that here in the near future we have some more third spaces, and hopefully those are received well by the youth and other users. I was curious though, in this ordinance, it appeared to me to be a mandate, and in regards to 9.40.070, juvenile counselor, city manager is authorized and instructed to employ a full-time juvenile counselor. Do we have a juvenile counselor? I guess I'd never interacted or heard about that. Sorry.
Mayor, yeah, no, fair question. In the
So
body
if
of the
not,
law.
you're,
You know, the closest thing, if I may,
Oh,
Your Honor,
absolutely.
that we might have as it relates to what the law may be envisioning is with regard to a case coordinator in municipal court, wherein, you know, previously, historically, anytime we've had juvenile sorts of clients through municipal court, that person would oversee those relationships. However, now that we're in the environment of a single point of entry for juvenile clients that come into the court system, I would say that that's probably archaic in terms of what it is that we should be doing or not doing in the environment that we're in now. So circuit court becomes that point of entry for juvenile clients into the court system, and municipal court may no longer have a role as it relates to providing that type of service. And so as it relates to changes in the ordinance, that may be one we need to consider given where we're at now for the direction that the court system is taking all over Wyoming.
Councillor Haskins.
So I did have a lot of questions about the curfew ordinance, and first word in it is knowingly. So I think step one is what we're doing right now. As a parent, I didn't know what curfew was until my kids told me, and then I was kind of trusting them, and then I had to remember. So knowingly is step one, because in here it says we can charge the parents and we can charge the children, which I feel like at some point that is something I'm going to advocate for, that we encourage. I want us to start enforcing it, and I want us to enforce it on both the child and their parent. Watch my name in the picture.
yeah, right.
But step one, they have to know. So I like that you guys are gonna look and clean up the language and make it clear, because yeah, I see where the loitering and curfew. But we have a curfew. We've had a curfew as long as I've lived here. And like I said, I only kind of know this. And I've had a lot of kids, so we should really know this. So I want us to get it cleaned up, and then I want us to make it one of those things that the newspaper puts, that we put it on the thing that everybody knows. We just know, and then we do it.
They used to do those old commercials. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your child is? You know,
Well, we
they had to
them to
remind
11,
parents they
look how
had
kind
kids.
we So I think that that is going to be my goal in this, and I'm glad that we're bringing it, and I'm really glad that it covers almost everything. So I'm interested to see what tweaks you guys have, but I do want this to be something that we get everybody on board with, and we do focus on it. And I am all about third spaces, but not at 11 o'clock at night on a school night. And that's because they should be at home.
To address the loitering, what are the hours for parks? And do we have signage at the parks about the hours that is allowed? And then would that help the police with kids hanging out at parks?
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, the hours basically are at sundown. The park is essentially not available for, particularly for juvenile customers, if you will, into the area. So that would likely be codified as well somewhere.
Is that noted at the parks?
I think generally there is signage there, isn't there?
Generally speaking, not every park has hours, but specialty parks do clearly. An info packet, but I believe this is 11.
Says midnight on the city website. Could be interactive.
Would you click somewhere between?
I can't help myself.
Thank you. for the
I
correction.
think
Yeah.
90% sure they have a sign at.
Councillor Bond.
Thank you. Yeah, just, I guess I'm just wondering about the enforcement of this. I think, and the ordinance mentions that currently about, you know, it's not a defense to not be aware of, you know, either where your child is or where the ordinance or, you know, but I guess I think enforcement of this is going to open up, you know, probably some more maybe awareness about, obviously there are parents who don't necessarily either know where their kids are or maybe weren't even aware they left the house, that type of thing. So I think I think parents are going to need some options to, a student, I think of a child in need of supervision, that practice of, a teenager or child of any age that's not under the parent's control, not for lack of trying on the part of the parent. So just something, I guess, to be aware of there. And then I guess I would just add too that it would be helpful, I guess, thinking back to my experience as a school principal. I was the truancy officer. So I guess I would encourage us to look at, what truancy policies are we might consider, what might be effective, what's been effective in other cities and towns, similar size, in terms of making that effective, because I think both for truancy and for curfew violations, those are, to me, they kind of fall into that. They're kind of status violations. In other words, they're a violation based solely on the fact of the child's age, and they're not necessarily criminal in most cases. So anyway, I guess it just both of those things. I would think it would be helpful to have a truancy, and I think some partnering with the school district to kind of see what would be helpful to them. And again, I think even if we have a truancy ordinance, where will the enforcement land? Will that still remain with school administrators and school personnel, or does it fall on the police, and do they have the bandwidth and capacity to address that? So that's some of my concerns and questions.
We still have one more item to cover.
Yep.
Okay. So are we good with this? Did you need any direction?
Well, the direction I would ask is, it sounds like council is comfortable working in concert with the other municipalities to deal with some of these larger questions and see if we can't find some uniformity. Is that a fair assumption?
You bet.
Okay, well then we'll keep working in that direction.
And I know Eric and the chief are going to be looking at decoupling loitering and curfew. So very good. The last thing then is the Shepherd of the Hills MOU. I hope we have all read it and we're all happy with it, but I'll turn it over to you very quickly to set it up and see if we can get a quick thumbs up on it.
That sounds great, Your Honor. Thank you. This really was an opportunity to, now that you've had the chance to read the revised MOU, pursuant to feedback we've gotten from you in the past on this topic, to make sure any remaining questions or lingering questions couldn't be addressed before we take it to the floor and try to get your formal support for this direction. And so that really is why we're here on this item tonight.
Looks like we're good. Back on schedule. Thank you all. Perfect. Agenda review. Do you have anything on the agenda?
I do not, except to say that this is our last agenda together and for this year and for this seated council. And I want to take the opportunity to say how much I appreciate working with all of you, and those of you that are leaving. We really are going to miss you from the staff perspective. Really have enjoyed working with you. And,
Blindsided.
I know, I'm like, oh.
We will have one more get together.
Oh, good. Okay.
On the 7th, we'll have a pre-meeting.
Well,
on
that's
the
true.
7th,
Yeah, that's
so,
very true. That's
so
very true.
we can get mushy
Yeah.
that night.
Well, yes.
Bring it until the 7th.
Yeah. Like that.
Well, let it all out. Let it all out. What I say.
Let it out. Here.
Caught me off guard, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, don't open it.
It's an honor to work with you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure with you all. Anything else to come before the group?
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I actually meant to reach out to city staff about this yesterday. Do we not have, I'm not finding it now, on our consent agenda list for this evening, the acceptance of a grant for the outer loop pedestrian, or no, the PV Robertson Road Bridge construction? Is that on our consent agenda list?
It was on the list.
That's what I thought.
That what was removed.
Now I don't see it.
You're double checking.
Everybody looks at it here.
Yeah, maybe I should be looking at the agenda.
It's still in the,
It's on there.
it's in the book one, in there.
Okay, yeah, I don't see it on the agenda, but it's. So I'm happy,
Right.
I'm happy to wait to make a motion until then, but Carter, am I correct in, when I had read through the packet that we are accepting that grant? That would be essentially the final step in moving towards construction of that project?
That would be correct.
Okay. I believe when we made a motion for city staff to submit the application for that grant, I had expressed hesitation and was assured that there would be one more point to potentially pivot. And so I guess I would be, I can either do it now or I'm happy to wait till the meeting, but I would actually ask for that be pulled off consent because I think it warrants a little bit more discussion. It's just a lot of money. And between that and the outer loop project, both those pathways are something like $1.7 million. They're just not as lucrative of matches as we typically get for pathway projects. And so that's why I just feel like I'd be not comfortable moving forward with either of those projects. And so if nobody else feels that way, I suppose we can leave it on consent and I'll just vote against. But I personally felt like it warranted a little more discussion. So.
Well, you can individually vote no on that item.
I can, but I was interested in hearing whether my colleagues all, what their level of support is for it, because again, my position is that we should not accept it at this time. So I can vote no, but I'm also semi-interested in getting a majority vote on
Are you asking for us to support pulling it from consent or whether we support it in general?
First step would be pulling it from consent to at least allow us to have that discussion.
I mean, I'm okay with pulling it from consent if you want to have a conversation. But also, I'm going to support it.
It's just the timeline of the project.
We can certainly cover
would
that in
be-
discussion.
Okay.
Would it be most appropriate for me to make that motion at the time? Probably, because I can't make official motions in pre-meeting, right?
You definitely can't make motions in pre-meeting.
I will bide my time and just so y'all know my intent.
When can he make that motion to remove it?
Mr. Mayor, Council, it would be appropriate in the meeting.
Oh, I know that,
Yeah.
but I mean, when in the meeting?
So I'll get with the clerk and I think probably, obviously before we go to a vote. But it's a long consent agenda, and so I want to make sure we do it at the appropriate time so we don't read the whole thing.
And to be clear, your script is not prepared for this type of an action item. So
I know,
have
that's
that-
why I was
That's
asking,
right. Exactly.
when do we do that?
give us a moment to powwow and we'll
Yep.
I
catch you up.
apologize for jumping this on you. I meant to reach out.
Usually we ask for this like the one.
By noon yesterday.
No, that's okay though, but let us powwow a bit and
Oh, that's fine.
we'll connect. So.
That's fine.